They said the house was alive. Not with breath, nor with blood, but with whispers. Whispers that slid through the cracks in the walls, that breathed against the ears of those who dared walk too close. The villagers of Nkata swore they had heard them, some soft as a lullaby, others sharp as knives cutting through the night. No one built the house. At least, not anyone living. It had stood there for as long as memory stretched, on the far edge of the village, where the forest grew too thick and the ground turned dark with moss. Its roof sagged but never collapsed. Its walls cracked but never fell. And its door was always open, waiting. The elders had a name for it. They called it Ulom Baragwu, the rooted house. Because like roots, it seemed buried deep, clinging to something beneath the earth that no one dared to disturb. And yet, one night, someone did. And the shadows spoke louder than ever before. Her name was Amara. Amara was unlike the rest of the villagers, quiet where they were loud, restless where they were content. She had the kind of eyes that looked past people, as if searching for something they couldn't see. Her mother often said, "Your spirit walks faster than your feet. That is why you are never still." She lived on the edge of Nkata, in a small hut with mud walls and a thatched roof. Every day she fetched water from the river, pounded yam in the courtyard, and listened to the gossip that drifted from the market square. But none of it settled in her heart. She was haunted by something else, dreams. Dreams of that house. At first, they were faint, a door creaking in her sleep, shadows moving along her walls though no fire burned. But then they grew stronger. She would wake in the night and swear she heard voices, low, urgent, weaving through her ears. Sometimes calling her name. Sometimes begging. Sometimes warning. The villagers had long stopped speaking of the rooted house. It was taboo, a wound too deep to touch. Mothers slapped their children if they even pointed toward it. Hunters walked wider paths to avoid it. But Amara, young and reckless, found herself drawn to it like a moth circling flame. One evening, while the sun bled red across the horizon, she sat by the fire with her grandmother. The old woman's hands trembled as she tied palm fronds for protection charms. "Grandmother," Amara whispered, "what lives in that house?" The old woman's eyes darted up sharply. For a moment, the flames reflected in her pupils, making them seem like burning coals. "Don't speak of it," she hissed. "That house is not a house. It is a mouth. And mouths must feed." But Amara pressed on. "Then why does it wait? Why has it not swallowed the village whole?" Her grandmother's hand stilled. The silence stretched until the fire cracked. And then, in a voice low as wind rustling through grass, she answered. "Because it chooses. And when it chooses, there is no escape." That night, the whispers came again. Louder. Clearer. Amara tossed on her raffia mat, sweat beading on her brow though the night air was cool. She heard them sliding through the cracks of her hut, brushing her ears, curling around her like smoke. "Come," they breathed. "Come and listen." She sat up, her chest tight. The shadows in the corners of her room seemed thicker, heavier, as though they leaned forward, waiting for her response. And though every bone in her body screamed to stay still, her feet moved. Barefoot, she stepped out into the night. The moon was swollen, hanging low like a watchful eye. Crickets fell silent as she passed. The path that led toward the forest stretched before her, silver in the pale light. And at the end of it, in the distance, she saw it, the house. Its doorway glowed faintly, as if a lantern flickered inside. But no one lived there. No one could live there. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook. Still, she took one step forward. Then another. By morning, the whole village buzzed with whispers of its own. A hunter claimed he had seen Amara wandering near the rooted house. Children said they heard laughter spilling from the forest. And at the market, the elders gathered in a tight circle, their voices grim. "The shadows have chosen," one muttered. "She is marked," another said. "If she does not resist, the house will wake." That evening, her friend Ifeoma came to her hut. She was frantic, her eyes wide with fear. "Amara, please," she begged, gripping her arm. "Don't go near that place again. My uncle went there when he was young. He thought he heard his dead mother's voice calling him. He never came back. All they found was his walking stick, broken at the edge of the forest. Amara swallowed hard. She wanted to promise she would stay away. She wanted to silence the pounding of her heart, the restless hunger in her chest. But she couldn't, because deep inside she already knew her fate was tied to that house. The whispers had chosen her, and soon the shadows would speak. The next few nights did not let Amara rest. Every time she closed her eyes, the dreams came. At first, it was just the whispers, curling through her sleep like smoke from an unseen fire. But soon, they sharpened into voices, clear, deliberate, heavy with weight. Some pleaded, others mocked, but all of them knew her name. Amara, child of restless spirit. Come and listen. She would jolt awake, her breath ragged, her palms wet with sweat. Yet the whispers did not fade with the dawn. They lingered, beneath the market chatter, beneath the goat bells, even beneath the rhythm of the pounding pestles in the village square. Everywhere she went, the shadows seemed to follow. When she fetched water from the river, she saw her reflection shimmer, as if something else moved behind her face. When she pounded yam, the shadows of her arms stretched too long, twisting unnaturally across the ground. And at night, when the moonlight spilled into her hut, she swore the shadows along her walls bent toward her, leaning closer with every heartbeat. The village noticed. Children stopped playing near her hut. Mothers pulled their little ones close when she walked past. At the market, when Amara bent to buy cassava, two women quickly stepped back, whispering under their breaths. She carries the mark, one hissed. The house has touched her, the other muttered. By the time she returned home, the air around her felt heavy with suspicion. One evening, the elders summoned her. She entered the obi, the council hut, where the oldest men and women of Nkata sat in a half-circle. Their faces were drawn, their cowries clutched tightly, their eyes sharp with both fear and pity. The eldest, Agwefai Medu, leaned forward. His voice cracked with age, yet carried the weight of generations. "Child," he said, "we have seen the signs. The whispers follow you. The shadows bend toward you. Do you not feel it?" Amara hesitated, then whispered, "Do." The hut stirred uneasily. One woman spat on the floor, muttering a prayer under her breath. Medu's gaze deepened. "Then hear me well. That house is not for the living. It is a prison for what should not walk the earth. If it has chosen you, you must resist. Stay away. Close your ears to its call. For if you do not—" He let the words hang, heavy and unfinished. Amara clenched her fists. "But why me? Why does it call my name?" The elders exchanged looks. None spoke. Finally, the oldest woman, Nkata, lifted her wrinkled hand. "Because the house is hungry," she whispered, "and hunger always seeks the restless." That night, Amara tried to follow their warning. She stuffed her ears with cotton, covered her face with cloth, and lay rigid on her mat. But the whispers pierced through everything. Louder, sharper. "Do not fear us," they crooned. "We are your kin, your truth, your blood." Her mat trembled beneath her. The walls of her hut shivered. The shadows writhed like living things. And then, in a voice low and broken, she heard it, her mother's voice. "Amara." Her eyes flew open. Her mother was asleep in the next hut, yet the voice was here, beside her, inside her. "Come, child, come and see." Her resolve cracked. Tears stung her eyes as she stumbled to her feet. The cotton fell from her ears. The cloth slid from her face. And her body, weak and trembling, moved toward the door. She found herself again on the path to the forest. The night was unnaturally still. No wind stirred the leaves, no owl hooted, no cricket sang. Even the river seemed to hush as she passed. The house stood ahead, dark against the moonlight. Its doorway pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Her knees buckled, but she walked closer. And then she saw them. Shadows. They spilled from the doorway like smoke, curling across the ground, stretching long fingers that reached toward her feet. Some were tall, some small, their outlines shifting like people caught between worlds. One shadow rose higher than the others, its form sharp, jagged, almost human. Its head tilted, and though it had no face, Amara felt its gaze pierce her. Listen, it hissed. The others echoed, a chorus of broken voices. Her breath caught. She wanted to run, but her legs would not move. Her chest ached, her heart thundering so loud she thought it might burst. Then, just as the shadows reached her, someone yanked her arm. It was Ifeoma. Her friend's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. Amara! No, she cried. Don't listen to them. Amara blinked. The shadows recoiled, hissing like snakes struck with fire. The glow in the doorway dimmed. And just like that, silence. Ifeoma dragged her back toward the village, half pulling, half carrying her. Amara stumbled, her vision swimming, her ears still ringing with the whispers. When they reached the edge of the clearing, Amara collapsed, gasping for air. Ifeoma gripped her shoulders tightly. Do you see now? She whispered fiercely. They want you. They will not stop until you give yourself. Amara's lips trembled. She wanted to deny it, to call it a dream, a trick of the night. But deep inside, she knew the truth. The shadows had spoken, and their voices were only growing louder. The following days dragged like heavy chains. Amara barely left her hut. She tried to act normal, pounding yam, washing clothes, feeding the goats, but nothing erased the memory of the shadows curling toward her, their voices echoing in her chest. She thought Ifeoma's intervention had saved her. But each night, the whispers grew louder. This time, they did not wait for her to sleep. They followed her even when her eyes were open. In the flicker of her cooking fire, the flames stretched and bent, shaping themselves into faces that murmured her name. In broad daylight, as she fetched water, the surface of the river rippled into words only she could hear. We are here. We are waiting. And at night, when she shut her eyes, she felt them brush against her skin, cold, weightless touches, like the flutter of moth wings. The village's unease grew with each passing day. One morning at the market, as Amara reached for a calabash of palm oil, the woman selling it recoiled. Don't touch, she snapped, pulling the calabash away. Your hands are not clean. The other women turned, whispering. A few clutched charms around their necks. One spat on the ground, muttering, Child of the shadows. Amara froze, her throat tight. She wanted to scream that it wasn't her fault, that she never asked for this. But the words died on her lips. By the time she returned home, she found a small pile of ashes scattered at her doorway. A curse, meant to ward her away. Her heart cracked. The place she had called home all her life was beginning to push her out. That night, Ifeoma slipped into her hut. Her friend's face was drawn, her eyes rimmed with sleepless worry. You cannot stay silent, Amara, she whispered. The whispers will not stop until you face them. Amara's voice trembled. Face them? They are shadows. They are not even of this world. Ifeoma hesitated, then leaned closer. Not all shadows are the same. Some are remnants, fragments of those who died wrongfully. My grandmother once told me that the house was built over graves. Forgotten ones. Those who were never given proper rest. Amara's breath caught. She had heard fragments of that tale too, whispered by elders when they thought the young were not listening. The house, they said, was cursed not because of witchcraft, but because it sat on stolen ground. Then why me? Amara asked, her voice breaking. Why do they call my name? Ifeoma's lips pressed into a thin line. Because you are the only one who can hear them. And if you do not help them, Amara, they will take you. The next day, Amara tried to gather answers from the elders, but they turned her away. Medu refused to meet her eyes. Mama Nkata hissed and shut her door. Even her own uncle muttered a prayer under his breath when she approached. By evening, the whispers had grown unbearable. They no longer pleaded, they commanded. Come. Now. Finish what was begun. Her body shook violently. The shadows in her hut rose higher than her ceiling, writhing like smoke trapped in a jar. Her clay pots toppled. Her mat slid across the floor. And then the voice of her dead grandmother echoed through the chaos. Amara. Her blood ran cold. Her grandmother had died years ago, yet the voice was unmistakable, warm, heavy, filled with sorrow. You are the bridge, it whispered. Free us, or join us. Amara's heart thundered. She couldn't fight this alone anymore. She ran to Iphioma, breathless, trembling. "I have to know the truth," she gasped. "I have to go back to the house." Iphioma's face paled. "Amara! I can't hide forever. They won't let me." Her friend bit her lip, then nodded slowly. "Then you won't go alone. If we are to face this, we'll do it together." That night, the two girls carried a small oil lamp and crept through the forest. The air was colder than before, sharp as broken glass. The trees loomed like sentries, their branches clawing at the sky. The house rose ahead, darker than the night itself. Its roof sagged like a mouth ready to swallow. Its doorway pulsed with that same faint glow, steady as a heartbeat. Amara's hands shook, but she stepped forward, Iphioma close beside her. The moment they crossed into the clearing, the whispers erupted, hundreds of voices layered atop one another, a chorus of grief and rage. "Welcome, child of blood. Free us." The shadows surged from the doorway, taller, sharper, more human than ever. Some carried outlines of faces twisted in sorrow. Others looked like children clutching unseen hands. Iphioma gripped Amara's arm. "Do you see them? Spirits, restless spirits." Amara's chest heaved. "They want something. They've been waiting for me." One shadow stepped forward, taller than the rest. Its voice cut through the chorus like a blade. "Bring the truth into the light," it hissed. And then, at their feet, the earth trembled. The ground cracked, splitting the clearing. Dust rose in choking clouds. And from the soil, fragments of bones pushed upward, ribs, skulls, arms reaching toward the sky. Amara staggered back, her stomach twisting in horror. Iphioma clutched her lamp tighter, whispering prayers. The shadows bent low, circling the bones like mourners. Their voices wove together into a cry that rattled Amara's bones. "We were buried in silence, forgotten in the dark. Free us or join us." Amara's knees buckled. Her head spun. Every nerve in her body screamed to run, but the whispers coiled tighter, binding her in place. She realized then, the house was not cursed because of a witch. It was cursed because it sat on the graves of those denied peace. And now they demanded it. The air thickened until it felt like a wet cloth pressed against Amara's face. The bones at her feet glistened pale under the trembling lamplight, their hollow sockets staring up like empty eyes. The shadows circled tighter, their voices swelling into a storm that clawed inside her skull. "Free us! Free us!" Amara clutched her ears, falling to her knees. "How?" she cried, her voice breaking. "Tell me how." The tallest shadow bent low, its face stretching into something half-human, half-ash. "Give us the fire of truth. Break the silence. Speak what was buried." Amara's chest heaved. She glanced at Iphioma, who stood frozen, her lips moving soundlessly in prayer. "I don't understand," Amara whispered. "What truth? I have nothing." But then her grandmother's voice returned, soft yet sharp, cutting through the chaos. "They were murdered, Amara. Buried in secret. The house was built to hide their shame." Amara's stomach lurched. The villagers had always spoken of curses, of witchcraft. But not of this. Her voice trembled. "Who killed you?" The shadows wailed in unison, their cry rising into the treetops. Faces twisted in grief flickered like torn fabric. The answer came not in words but in images, visions clawing into Amara's mind. She saw men with machetes. Flames devouring huts. Screams in the night. A group of villagers, her ancestors, burying bodies hurriedly, shoveling dirt as if silence could erase blood. The truth struck like lightning. Her village had slaughtered innocents long ago. And instead of repentance, they built over their graves. Her throat tightened with rage and sorrow. "You were wronged, hidden, forgotten." The shadows surged forward, their faces stretching closer until their icy breath brushed her cheeks. "Say it," they thundered. "Say it where they can hear." The earth shuddered violently. The house behind them moaned as if alive, its walls bulging outward, its windows splitting with cracks. A foul wind blew from its doorway, snuffing out Iphioma's lamp. Darkness swallowed them whole. Amara's heartbeat hammered against her ribs. She could barely see, yet the shadows glowed faintly, skeletal outlines clawing toward her. Amara! Ifeoma's voice cracked through the void. Don't let them take you. But Amara understood now. The shadows didn't want her life, they wanted her voice. Her grandmother's whisper urged again, trembling with both love and sorrow. Child, only the living can speak for the dead. Amara's body shook. Her knees pressed into the dirt, and then she screamed into the night, louder than she ever had in her life. This land is stained. These are the forgotten, murdered, buried in silence. Her voice tore through the air like a blade. The shadows froze. The storm of whispers halted, collapsing into stunned silence. And then, the bones at her feet blazed with sudden fire, not flame but light. A golden glow poured from the earth, swallowing the clearing. The shadows screamed, not in rage, but in release. Their forms unraveled into smoke, drifting upward like torn cloth caught in the wind. Faces softened. The children's cries turned into faint laughter. The tallest shadow bowed its head toward Amara. You have spoken for us. The silence is broken. We are free. But the house did not rest. Its walls groaned louder, splitting wide. The ground buckled, dragging the roof downward. A gaping hole yawned beneath it, swallowing beams, dirt, stones. Amara's pulse roared in her ears. Ifeoma, run. The two girls sprinted, the earth cracking beneath their heels. Behind them, the house collapsed into itself with a sound like thunder. Dust and splinters erupted skyward. The glow of the bones flared one last time before vanishing into the night. When they reached the edge of the forest, Amara fell to the ground, gasping, her body slick with sweat. The clearing behind them was gone, swallowed by silence. No house. No bones. Only a scar of earth where the past had finally been uncovered. But silence did not mean peace. For even as the night grew calm, Amara could feel eyes on her. The village would not forgive easily. The shadows had been freed, but the truth now lived inside her. She had spoken it. She had carried their voices. And the village would have to hear. Amara wiped her tears, trembling but alive. Ifeoma knelt beside her, gripping her hand tightly. You did it, she whispered. You freed them. Amara shook her head slowly. No, not yet. Not until everyone knows. And as the moon rose higher, casting its silver light over the scarred earth, Amara realized her nightmare was only beginning. Because shadows could be freed. But guilt would cling to the living forever. Morning came, but it felt like no dawn Amara had ever seen. The sun was pale, its light thin and cold, as if it too hesitated to shine on the land of Zawadi. Amara and Ifeoma staggered back into the village. Their clothes were torn, their hair matted with dirt, their eyes hollow from the night's terror. But Amara carried something more, an invisible weight pressing against her chest. She could still hear the echoes of the shadows' voices, as if they clung to her very breath. At first, no one believed them. The villagers gathered in the square, their faces twisted with curiosity and scorn. Elder Chaik, tall and sharp-eyed, crossed his arms. So, he said, the foolish child and her friend returned from the cursed house. Tell us, what stories do you bring this time? The crowd chuckled, some shaking their heads. But Amara did not flinch. Her voice cracked, but she spoke. There were no curses, she said, her tone heavy with fire. No witches. No demons. The shadows were the dead. Are dead. Buried beneath that house. They were slaughtered. Hidden. Silenced. The square went still. Elder Chaik's eyes narrowed. Lies? He spat. Children's fantasies. Amara stepped forward. Her small frame trembled, but her words carried the weight of generations. I saw it. The visions. Men with blades. Huts burning. Screams in the night. Our ancestors killed them, and buried their bones where the house stood. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Faces turned pale. Some villagers covered their mouths. Others shifted uncomfortably, refusing to meet her eyes. Enough! Chaik barked. His voice cracked louder than before, but there was a quiver in it now, a tremor that betrayed him. These are wicked lies meant to shame us. She is only a child. Amara's gaze sharpened, piercing him like a blade. You knew, she said softly. Didn't you? A murmur swept through the crowd. Whispers like the night wind curled in every ear. All eyes turned toward Chike. His face drained of color. His mouth opened, closed. He stammered. It was long ago. A different time. We did what we had to do to survive. A woman from the crowd screamed. Survive? You butchered them. Another voice shouted, You built lies upon blood. The square erupted in chaos. Shouts, curses, sobs. The truth, buried for generations, had clawed its way into daylight, and it would not be silenced again. That night, the villagers gathered around fires. No one slept. They argued, wailed, demanded answers. But no answer could undo the past. Amara sat at the edge of the crowd, her knees pulled to her chest. Ifeoma leaned against her, silent. Her grandmother's voice whispered again, but softer now, fading like smoke. You have done what I could not, child. You gave them voice. And now the living must bear the weight. Tears slid down Amara's cheeks. She wiped them roughly, refusing to let weakness show. The truth had set the shadows free. But it had shackled the living. Days turned into weeks. The cursed house never returned. It was gone, swallowed by the earth. Yet the village was no longer the same. Families whispered of ancestors who had blood on their hands. Friendships soured. Trust cracked. Children no longer played freely in the square. Women avoided the well at night. Men stared too long into the flames, as if seeing old ghosts in every flicker. And Amara became the marked one. Some villagers looked at her with gratitude, whispering blessings under their breath. Others glared with hatred, blaming her for tearing open old wounds. One evening, as she carried water from the stream, a man hissed at her, You should have stayed silent. Shadows are better left in darkness. Amara stopped. She looked at him, her eyes calm, but her voice steady as stone. No, she said. Shadows only grow stronger in silence. But when spoken, they fade. The man turned away, shamed. That night, Amara stood on the edge of the forest where the house once stood. The moon glowed faintly above her, silver on the scarred earth. She whispered to the wind, You are free now. Rest. A faint breeze brushed her cheek, warm, gentle. For the first time, the night did not feel heavy. But Amara knew one truth more terrifying than any ghost. Shadows may be freed, but the guilt of the living would never leave. And so the village of Zawadi would live forever haunted. Not by spirits, but by memory.